Welcome to Mass Effect Synthesis, a Mass Effect AU fanfiction. Thank you for listening. Let's begin. Chapter 13, Harbinger Shepard, Shepard Harbinger. January 18, 2190, Sol System, Shepard. Shepard mentally stretched as she slowly rotated in space. The sun felt good upon her hull and made a nice counterbalance to the side that was in shadow. Solar winds caressed her body and she could feel coolant pumping through her form. The hum of her engines purred to her like the beat of her once human heart. It felt good. It felt natural, and she felt so expansively alive that she almost couldn't describe the feeling. She moved her gun turrets, luxuriating in the way they shifted the flow of the solar winds around her, and without a thought she raised her shields, blocking the winds, though she could feel the pressure against her. It was not unpleasant, it just was. In the distance, she could hear others like her. They were asleep. Their metamorphoses ongoing. Some were just beginning synthesis while others, like her, were nearly finished. It was soothing, and with a touch of whimsy she uncoiled, unfurling every weapon towards the sun. She felt them lift out of her body or unwind at her sides, increasing her frontal profile but giving her more firepower, and when they settled she spun, shifting the weaponry so that she and they were now broadside to the sun. Another flick and she flipped upside down, then backwards. She tracked the sun always. Not that it was hard for any decent pilot. It was too big to miss, but the tiny patch thousands of kilometers away that she'd aimed at? That was a different matter, and Shepard was pleased as the targeting subroutines were continually tightened by the calibration equations which fed through her mind. She lowered her shields and recalled her weaponry, once again enjoying the sun's warmth before turning her attention inwards. Harbinger was waiting for her, and, for an instant, it was disconcerting to see him in her human shell. They were one being now, though they represented different aspects of the same entity. The separation was superficial but had been agreed upon for optimization. It was a temporary thing, for the time when they still had to deal with the limitation of organics. "Are you comfortable?" Harbinger asked. "Quite," Shepard replied, knowing that he already knew the answer. "Are you?" She resisted the urge to laugh. He was in her shell, and her shell was female. He had had experience taking on avatars, but he had never needed to take on female form. The chemical makeup of each avatar differed from organic to organic, and the female form was proving to be challenging to him. His look was her answer, and as the aspect of their being which was Shepard watched, Harbinger sat her body down and re-interfaced with his usual body. She laughed again and embraced his consciousness with her own, caressing his mental form, purring as he returned the favor with his usual efficient precision. Shepard was the lighter aspect, more forgiving and imaginative, more indulgent of emotion. Harbinger was colder, logical, and harsher. Where a single boot could squash a bug, he was not afraid to send a battalion to reinforce the message. They were now one being with different aspects, but the joy of union was something they both cherished, something that caused them both delight, and in that, Harbinger was not shy at admitting or indulging his desires. "Not now," Shepard teased. "We have to go back soon." "We do, but we have yet to decide upon a name." Their combined entity had debated names for days, yet nothing either had suggested had felt right. The new name would signal rebirth and a new beginning for them both. It was how eternity would refer to them. "We have both run through our databases and have yet to find a name pleasing." Shepard returned to her body and nodded. Like the other synthesized, they had tried using a singular pronoun, but while it was comfortable, they realized that meaning would be lost to outsiders. While they maintained two shells, the singular name would confuse outsiders, and as the leader, they could not be unclear. And perhaps they should take that stance for their name. The aspect of Harbinger shared her thoughts. "That presents its own confusions," he said. "No, we can simplify." Shepard placed one hand on her chest. "This shell, this form is Shepard Harbinger. Your form is Harbinger Shepard. It will define our two aspects and be clear enough for the organics." She felt Harbinger thinking before he nodded mentally. "That is sufficient and appropriate. We have no beginning and we have no end," he said, referring to the other Sil, and Shepard resisted the urge to laugh. That was bullshit. They had a beginning, just an organic mind could not comprehend the eternity that Harbinger had represented. "We have no end," she confirmed once again, embracing Harbinger's aspect. "And since synthesis is not an end, there is no need to change our name to reflect that." "Well then," Harbinger spoke, and Shepard was slightly surprised to hear him behind her. Matriarch Benezia leads the Asari people in prayer. She prays even for the spiritual energy of the suicide bombers, hoping that they find peace in the whole of the universe. She prays for the matriarchs and all Asari who were killed. She is a unifying public figure, and her already powerful position becomes more so as she consolidates power after the attack. Unsurprisingly, Councillor Tavos pledges public support to Benezia and vows that anyone behind the bombing will be punished, no matter where they run. And like that, the second last hope of the Protheans dies. Early 2190, Earth calendar, Council species. With Vendetta destroyed and Matriarch Benezia taking control of the Asari Republic, tensions between the homeworld governments and the Citadel Council cool. Efforts by Eschiel and Tavos make the remaining Asari matriarchs wonder what was wrong in the first place, and they simply put their previous fears up to bad communication. As a gesture of goodwill, top-level government officials from all three council races are invited to the Citadel, and while not everyone is capable of attending, a goodly number of matriarchs accompany Benezia to the Citadel. 5 or 6 Solarian Dalatras also make it, and to Sparatus's well-concealed annoyance, several Turian admirals and primarchs also attend. Eschiel insists they all see the new ship, and an extensive tour is conducted. The Keepers made more and more adjustments, closing off whole wings of the Citadel as they work. Access to the unknown ship has never been impaired, though it is noticed that they appear to be wiring this ship into the Citadel itself. As the Keepers certainly do not fear the ship, other races began to lose their apprehension. Sparatus remained the only councillor who refuses to go inside the ship. He was adamant that there is something off about it. Eschiel and Tavos continue to dismiss his claims but humor his insistence that the council keeps to its traditional chambers. The Asari and Solarian councillors still work closely with Saren, who is now quartered on the ship, apparently with its full approval, as a suite of rooms was discovered just after he'd put in his request. Study of the ship led to the development of a stronger main cannon for dreadnoughts. The Turian fleet was the first to be outfitted, and for that, Sparatus was grateful. He allowed himself to visit the outside of the ship, watching the Keepers work. The visit, though, confirmed his belief that something is off about the ship, and he left, feeling almost stupid for thanking it. Unknown to the Turian councillor, Nazara is pleased, realizing it's only a matter of time before Sparatus is under his thrall. The Vanguard may be comparatively young, but he realizes that being universally accepted would be suspicious. Sparatus's resistance, however honest and heartfelt, also served Nazara's own purpose. Saren continued work as a Spectre, and if anything his reputation grew even further. He is welcomed in all parts of council space and grudgingly allowed entry into Omega. Arya didn't like it, but she does not control her borders. She, or rather her grunts, informed the hotshot that if he interfered in her business then nothing, not even his precious council, would save him. Saren invited them to try, but also told them that he's merely looking for Dr. Morden. The Solarian's presence is still required. This piqued Arya's interest. Obviously Tavos wanted the good doctor for something, but the man was not interested. Now she was sending specters after him. Preparation for war or not, something was not right. After Saren left empty-handed, Arya put her own feelers out. She met with significantly more success and soon learned that Morden took a ship off Omega heading into Asari territory. It wouldn't have looked too odd. Asaris and Solarians are closely allied, and passage for their people in their respective territories is easy, but after that Morden's trail goes cold. Obviously he was not captured, but he does not wish to be found. About the only thing Arya can establish for certain is that before he left, Morden spoke with one other person, Krogan Erdno Rex. It is unusual, as Solarians and Krogan do not usually mix well. As they did not leave together, she assumes the discussion was a business negotiation that fell through and thinks nothing further of it. Upon her mother's request, Liara Tisonai eventually visits the Citadel. While young, she is one of the galaxy's foremost experts on Prothean history and had provided confirmation that the ship had been found in Prothean archives. What she had not told the rest of the galaxy was that the ship was found in the archives as an enemy. Unable to avoid her mother's requests any longer, Liara sees the ship for the first time. Her response is much like Sparatus's, but she is unable to avoid entering the ship with her mother, and the instant one foot touches the ship she realizes that this ship is still alive. This ship is one of the beings responsible for the deaths of the Protheans. She can feel it reaching towards her, and Liara collapses, vomiting, and is rushed out of the vessel to a medical bay. April 17, 2190, Citadel. Liara rounded the corner of the promenade before she pulled up. Around her several Turians bunched close, and while she was grateful for their presence, it was a little annoying. After she'd collapsed near the new ship on the Citadel, they'd moved into position, herding her away and generally making sure she was feeling okay. There had been something about the ship, she didn't know what, but it had not agreed with her, and the closer she had gotten, the worse she had felt until she'd fallen, just near the entry, vomiting the breakfast she had shared with her mother. That's when Garrus people had gathered close and they hadn't left. 6 commandos coming in straight. The report was piped over her Omni tool, and Liara recognized Vakarian's voice. She resisted the urge to glance around. Chances were, she wouldn't have been able to see him, and the motion would probably give away his position. She didn't have any formal military training beyond the use of her biotics, but she wasn't stupid. Flanking? One of the Turians asked. No. Further discussion was abandoned as the Asari commandos stopped, spreading themselves to block the walkway. Lady Tisonai, the lead commando, said gently, and Liara recognized Pila. She'd known Pila all her life, as the commando had served Matriarch Venezia for at least 100 years. Pila, Liara replied. Your mother will be disappointed. The words were simple, the implications weren't. For a moment Liara looked down, her eyes half closed as she fought the pain the statement brought. She bit the inside of her lip so that the pain acted as a focus. Her mother might be disappointed, but she was not going to go near that ship. My mother will understand that research does not wait. So you are returning to Therum? Pila asked. Liara smiled gently. Yes. There is a picture of a ship similar to the one on the Citadel at Therum. I didn't have time to properly research before I came, and you saw how I reacted. She tried to make light of events. It was a temporary reaction, caused by your biotics, Pila soothed. I wish your mother had told us, so that we might have warned you to expect it. Then it would not have been so bad. It's not that, Liara said. There is so much unknown. And Therum can help us find out the answers. The ship is not Prothean, that's all I know. But what is it? Is it older? Does it belong to one of the other races that lived at the same time? There's so much we could learn. She tried to sound excited, but inside she was quivering. She did not want to be here. Then learn here. Pila entreated. Therum is an old world. You have the opportunity to learn here, from the source. And you do not have to be locked away on some inhospitable world that is at the back end of nowhere. Imagine what you could discover here. It was a tempting offer, but while the image on Therum had confirmed that the ship was not Prothean, it had not confirmed that the ship was friendly. Liara didn't know if it was her own reaction clouding her perception, but she didn't care. The ship was not friendly and she wanted to leave. Now. That's why she'd been heading back to her shuttle. Undoubtedly I could learn a lot from the ship, Liara agreed, and as she spoke Pila relaxed slightly. But only Prothean records can provide perspective. I can't learn that here, and while an artifact is good, without perspective, without knowing what its purpose was in history, it is just an artifact and we can admire it but we learn nothing. I don't want to admire the ship. I want to learn. She wanted to be away from here to decipher the texts they had copied from Therum. Prothean society had fallen, while at its peak. The ship of the Citadel was not Prothean, and no matter what she said, Liara did not believe it was a ship of another contemporary race. She had been sick and she knew her sickness was not triggered by biotics as Pila suggested. It was triggered by the ship, by how it felt. It felt old, it felt cold, and there was a slick feeling in the back of her throat and her heart beat faster just remembering. The ship felt like death, and while there had been nothing in Therum which outright explained the ship, there were hints she would need time to collate. Pila tensed again. Lady Tisonai, the commando said firmly, I'm going to have to insist you remain on the Citadel. Liara pressed her lips together and she felt the Turians around her tense. Pila, she said, you've known me since I was born, and while usually I would stay to accommodate my mother, I am leaving. I cannot let you do that. Pila replied, her eyes hard, and Liara watched as the 5 commandos behind her reached for their weapons. It caused her Turian guards to follow suit. Tell your Turians to stand down. They cannot win. Tell your commandos to stand down, Liara retorted, or I will have wrongful detainment charges pressed. Lady Tisonai, your mother only wants what is best for you. Pila tried another tactic. Liara, step right, I don't have a clear shot. Garrus' voice whispered through her Omni tool. Soft enough not to be heard by Pila. No. Liara exclaimed. Turians were trained to be good shots, but Garrus took it further. As a sniper, he was the best she'd ever seen. Pila tensed and Liara recognized her mistake as the Asari commandos jumped forward. No killing. Liara screamed, but even as Garrus had asked, lunged to the right. Surely Garrus would know not to kill. These weren't Amigan mercenaries. This was the Citadel. A death here would be considered murder. She powered her own biotics, but before she could use them, Pila felt older Asari had stepped forward, intending to pull her away from the Turians surrounding her. Liara felt a rush of relief when she realized that Pila was clutching her leg. The wound would bleed, but with medical attention it would not kill. 2 more commandos fell to similar wounds, and Liara allowed herself to be pushed further to the right, clearing the center line of the walkway, as the Turians crowded close. A 4th Asari charged in, but Liara tossed him back, wincing as she watched the other Asari hit her head and slump down. The 5th fell to another leg wound, and a concussion charge took out the 6th. The violence was over as suddenly as it had started, and Liara breathed deeply to calm herself. After a moment she looked over to Pila. "I'm sorry," she said as gently as she could. "I don't care what my mother wants, but I am returning to Therum. There is information about the ship there, information I will find. I appreciate that she worries, but I am over 100 and I cannot be a baby forever." "No." Pila growled, and as Liara watched, the wounded Asari rose, biotic power surrounding her hands and forearms. Liara raised her own power again, but realized she wouldn't be in time. It was surreal. As she watched, Pila's energy sparked and then flew upwards as the Asari spun. It was only as Pila fell that Liara saw the wound, high on Pila's arm. "Run!" Garrus' voice sounded through all the Omni tools, and Liara was dragged along as the members of Vakarian's group swept her along. "I'm sorry," she said again, not looking back as the feeling of sickness overtook her again. If her mother had given orders to detain her, then something was very wrong, and it was only by continuing her research would she discover what. Early 2190 Council species. The altercation between Liara Tisoni's bodyguards and an Asari commando unit is briefly the talk of the Citadel. It's known that Liara's bodyguards would have had no chance hand-to-hand, but it's also known that she and her bodyguards left without a scratch on them. The CSEC investigation discovers that they were backed up by a sniper, and it's eventually realized that the sniper is the one known as the Archangel. Every major mercenary and other operations on Omega has a bounty on him, one that makes the collection of his head more than just a passing fancy. By the time they gather at the Citadel, Liara and her bodyguards are long gone and the Asari commando unit are tight-lipped. Nazara was concerned. Not at Liara's reaction, as that happens sometimes, but at the fact that she realized exactly what he was. No matter what research she had been conducting, information about them should not be recorded. Unknown to any except Nazara and Saren, Geth forces are dispatched to Therum to collect Liara, but her ship never arrives. Nazara is angry but consoles himself that Liara is one organic without the resources and support of her powerful mother. As such, she will not be able to do anything. Saren is frustrated, though he reveals that to be only due to personal reasons. He really wanted to meet Archangel, the ex-CSEC officer who doubted him. Spartus is really annoyed. He still wants to talk to Vakarian, who had appeared to disappear without a trace. Now he knows where the Turian went, but he still can't find him. The Turian counselor orders an extra protective detail for Garrus' family in the event that anyone other than him overheard Saren's comments. Early 2190 Systems Alliance. The first production model of improved human kinetic shielding is issued for military use. It is stronger than previous shields, protecting from a much wider range of energy and physical attacks. Retrofitting of Systems Alliance ships begins, and at the same time they are fitted with much improved railguns and mass drivers. Concentrated tachyon beam weapons are also fitted to augment the laser point defenses, and on the Dreadnought and Carrier-class ships a larger tachyon beam is installed to form a powerful secondary gun. After a successful test of new stealth fighters, production models are authorized for the Systems Alliance. The ships are to be cruiser-class and represent the most cutting-edge technology available to the Alliance. For the moment the ability to make gate metal is limited, and the new ships will not be ready for at least a year. As proof of concept, a destroyer group is retrofitted with improved armor and shielding. They are kept close to Earth. Human scientists think they are close to cracking another form of FTL, but they are not yet advanced enough to begin prototype testing. The SOCL are continuing to help, but they refuse just to provide answers. While weaponry is being developed, medical uses of improved cybernetics had also developed. Almost every part of the human body can be replaced cybernetically, and there is speculation that even the brain can be duplicated in the next few years. While initially the identity of his partner had been suppressed, Shepard's name had come out, and there is heavy betting on what their new combined name will be. There is a wide variety of hybrid names as well as some which are merely weird. The Systems Alliance does nothing to curb the betting. It's a distraction from the truth, because when Harbinger emerges, the world might end. Or it might not. It all depends on Shepard's will, and while most would have given her a great chance, the fact that Harbinger is billions of years old has not been revealed to the general public. The process of updating the plans shows the Systems Alliance strategies for including other life forms within their command structure, and the most optimistic hope to see a day where they can integrate other aliens. The plans still have Harbinger as one of, if not the ultimate commander-in-chief. Construction on the banks and banks of stasis pods on the outer colonies is completed. Usually such things would have been finished in a mere year, but the need to construct them in secret resulted in time blowouts. Collectively, the command of the Systems Alliance, and the few outside business contractors required to build them, breathe a sigh of relief when they are done and all notes and plans pertaining to the construction are destroyed. Now, in the event of the worst, humanity at least had a hope, no matter how fragile that chance might be. Watchdog Games, the single largest gaming corporation in the Systems Alliance, announces that they are working on a new joint quest. While full details remain confidential, they state that the quest will allow those who use the full dive virtual reality system for gaming will be able to complete that quest as a group. No matter what game they play. It will be a one-off event, allowing for the mergence of games and the transportation of your stats in one game to another. Reception is mixed, but most are eager to try the new quest even though no release date is specified. The Quarians experience a population boom, though in typical Quarian fashion most couples had waited until the food production units were far in excess of the current population's capacity before they had children. While the dextro-amino planets are suitable for them, they are still confined to their suits. The planets are not Rannic. They have too many toxins. Work is being conducted using nanotechnology to rebuild their immune systems, but the going is slow. Contact with the Geth has been put on hold until Harbinger comes out of synthesis. While most of the SOCL, including the new Quarian SOCL, feel that he will approve, they do not want to overstep their bounds, and he is still their boss. More Quarians agree to synthesis after seeing the result and talking with their people who had undergone it. It's still scary, but the results are comforting. 138 of the 278 capital-class SIL who began synthesis in 2187 emerge. They range in size from 2 kilometers to 8 like their brethren, and some distribute to colony worlds, though this time others remain in Sol space, reinforcing the Earth fleet and the Relay Defense Fleet. Their emergence is completely overshadowed by Harbinger. April 23, 2190. Harbinger re-enters Earth orbit, taking up his position above the North Pole as if he never left it. One day he was not there, the next unannounced he has returned. There is shock at his sheer size. He is just over 12 kilometers long but still sleek and armed. Gun turrets are visible along his flanks, and he has what look to be landing bays interspersed along his length. He dwarfs the SIL and SOCL around him, though it is noticed that many of the SIL are docking with him. Their purpose is unknown. It is noted somewhat ironically that unlike other SOCL there is no name displayed. The comment is made at a gathering of Systems Alliance Command called to discuss Harbinger. The gathered commanders are more than shocked when the comment receives a reply. "I know my own name," reverberates through the speakers. There is silence, but then a few admirals laugh. "And what is your name, sir?" the now Rear Admiral Anderson asked. "Harbinger Shepard." The response is surprising, and the pragmatic parts of the Systems Alliance aren't yet sure what to think. The fact that the SIL leader said Shepard is a good thing. The fact that he put Harbinger first is bad. Further questions are put off when an extra clarification sounds. "I will attend in 20 minutes. April 23, 2190, Systems Alliance Earth Headquarters. Shuttle H, you've been cleared to land. The ground control crew tried to treat this as routine, but they watched the unfamiliar shuttle closely. It was broadcasting Harbinger's clearances, and command had indicated that it should be allowed to land. The rumors were already running rife that Harbinger had once again taken up position above Earth. Command weren't the only ones who realized that this will be the beginning of a new age. Though it remains to be seen if this is good or bad. 10 Marines form up on the landing platform. Harbinger's rank has been confirmed, and while technically Shepard is only a lieutenant commander, she now bears his rank. The honor guard is her due. Escort ships had already driven off media, but it's only a matter of time before they get pictures of the newest and most important sea human. In the command conference room, several admirals are summoned to attend the meeting remotely. Hannah Shepard is one. And there is no hiding her apprehension as her hologram stands with the others. It's been almost 5 years since she last saw her daughter. Change is to be expected, but this change could be. She is aware of the most pragmatic plans of the Alliance, though she prays they will not be necessary. This one, Harbinger's voice comes over the comms again, and on the screen several admirals recognize one of the proposed command structure displayed. There are several red marks on it indicating changes, but his acceptance gives some relief. "We'll go over it shortly," Admiral Hackett replied, and he would have spoken further, but Shepard arrived. Silence greeted her entry as they got a good look at the new sea human. She didn't look much different. The black jumpsuit that sea humans wore was ubiquitous, but she was visibly armed. Her sidearm rode at her hip, a long Bowie knife was on her thigh, and several higher caliber weapons were strapped to her back. Tension grew as she looked around. "Hi, Mum." Shepard's smile is relaxed. "Jane." There is no hiding the joy in Hannah's voice, and her hologram steps forwards. Hands out to symbolically embrace her daughter. "We'll talk later, Mum." While the words are a dismissal, there is no harshness in them, and Hannah nods as her daughter continues. "We should get started," she said to the waiting admirals. "I've been away for 5 years, I'm sure there is much to go over." "There is, Harbinger," Admiral Hackett agreed, moving to a seat. "Ah," Shepard interrupted as she moved towards the chair at the head of the table. "My name is Shepard Harbinger," she corrected with a smile. "What you would call the ship is known as Harbinger Shepard. You are still 2 entities?" "No. We are one. I've already read that, for example," Shepard added, pointing towards the screen which showed the command structure. "Shall I summarize my thoughts on a few things, before we move on to specifics?" There were nods from the gathered staff, and already they were feeling reassured. While Harbinger had always been abrupt previously, he had been reasonable. His synthesis with Shepard appeared to have changed nothing, though it was too soon to tell for sure. "Quarians. I did not expect them, though I understand the reasons. It makes approaching the rest of the galaxy more challenging. I had been under the impression that only humans were required for synthesis, though it appears that some did not share all the details they should have. No matter, I will not be wishing to alter significant proportions of the treaty with humans." That brought a sigh of relief, but Shepard continued. For some it was odd to hear Harbinger's voice coming from Shepard. But for those who knew Shepard, while her words were not always familiar, there was something comforting there. The no-nonsense attitude was familiar. It appeared synthesis had brought out the best in them both. "I am pleased to see that synthesis is proceeding so well for sovereigns and regals. It will require a redistribution of the fleets. I'll attend to that shortly." "Fleets?" Shepard blinked. "A suppression fleet took care of the Batarians. It is approximately 100,000 ships. There are 10 suppression fleets. They each break into 10 fleets of 10,000 ships. Each fleet is led by one of my lieutenants. They break down further so that the smallest group is a scout group of 25 ships." "We always wondered about that," Anderson murmured. "You could have asked." The comment was pure. Shepard and a few of the admirals grinned. "Those SOCL who have begun to help in various scientific endeavors are cleared to continue. And the 100 or so who initially refused to provide their genetic samples will do so shortly." For a moment Shepard looked thoughtful. "Does that cover everything? The Ralloy and Rachni?" one of the command staff prompted. For a moment Shepard looked confused, but then she nodded. "I'll talk to them. Arshan did well ordering that. And that leaves the Geth." She looked down at her hands, tapping one finger against the others as she thought. "I'd like to speak with some Quarians before I contact them." "That seems reasonable, though what if the Geth want war?" Shepard grinned. "I can be very persuasive. I doubt they will fight. Individuals of synthetic races sometimes fought them, but most synthetics could be convinced to serve them in the cycle. The Geth were unlikely to be any different. She rose. I believe you should discuss the alterations I've suggested for the command structure before accepting it. After that, I've been cooped up for 5 years. I want some fun. Shepard began walking out of the room. I'll call you later, Mum, she added as she stepped through the door, leaving the gathered admirals staring at each other with surprise. Hannah Shepard was the first to recover. Her laughter broke through the silence. Hannah? That answers more than few questions, she chuckled. But I think we should look at the changes. Stephen Hackett nodded at her, but she caught the look which practically ordered her to report on her conversation with her daughter. Command flicked their eyes to the screen and they all downloaded the altered document and began to read. End chapter 13, Mass Effect, Synthesis. Thank you for listening. Join me again to listen to the next chapter.